I would, how I foreseen actually our lecture and workshop today. So first, I would like very briefly just to explain what actually research integrity is, the main topics. Also maybe to present to you a little bit how the Austrian Agency for Research Integrity is set up and what are our main activities. And then we will have a question-answer session, short break. And in the second part, I would like to invite you to work on a research integrity promotion plan, which is one of the main outcomes of the EU-funded Horizon 2020 project SOPs for RI. This stands for Standing Operating Procedures for Research Integrity. I would like to introduce you to the templates that we have developed and also to present to you all the online resources, the toolbox, and the guidelines and recommendations that are available online, free to use, to adjust for the creation of an institutional research integrity promotion plan. And then we would like to start working on a research integrity promotion plan in groups. Of course, we would try to create some mixed groups or institutional groups. This is what we can decide during the break maybe. And then let's see, I understand that some people are maybe newcomers to the topics, some are maybe more advanced, so each group can work on a different speed. I think that the most important for us right now would be just to kick off and to start thinking on how to strengthen and how to foster research integrity at the institutional level. Here you can see on the slide, so first question, why research integrity is important. So I think that what we've all experienced, especially during the pandemics, there is a general crisis of trust in science. And research integrity is one of the elements, together with the research ethics, that is trying to uphold the highest standards of good scientific practice. So how bad is the situation? This is a study that I'm always citing. It's most probably not a very new one, as we can see from the 2009, but this is the one considered to be a classic study on research misconduct within the research landscape and academia. So what we can see that actually only 2% of the scientists have admitted that they have committed actually a negligent, a gross research misconduct. But I think what is the most worrying element in this study is that up to 72% actually claim that they have observed others doing questionable research practices. And here is the question, did they report it? Did they take action? What actually happened? How we now conceptualized research misconduct and research ethics and what are the questionable research practices. I think that especially from the experiences at the national level, from the cases at the Austrian Agency for Research Integrity, we have to admit there are very few gross and negligent research misconduct cases. What we are mostly dealing with are cases that stay in the so-called gray zone. So this is what we are calling questionable research practices. This means that most of the scientists, the researchers, they really want to do a good job. So of course we all know that there are a lot of pressures nowadays, time pressure, limited resources, this necessity to publish all the time, necessity to lead projects, to get external funding. This is all creating an environment that it's not really supporting good scientific practice. That's why a lot also very good, reasonable, responsible researchers are from time to time committing something that we call sloppy science. That's why we see this necessity of training, of prevention, because we do believe that people are actually trying to do their best, but we need to support them and we need actually to involve policymakers, research funders, especially at the national levels, and of course the institutions and the organization themselves to create a good environment and an adequate research culture to support the researchers and the scientists. this is what I've already briefly talked about. So it's really what we can see also at the EU level is this general shift when we talk about research ethics and integrity. So we do move from strictly individual responsibility that is put on researchers and scientists towards a more broader institutional organizational responsibility. So this is an effort that has to be a systemic effort. So if we want people to behave, if we care about fostering good scientific practice, we need to realize that we need to create, foster, and strengthen a good environment for that. Very briefly about the agency. The agency was established in 2008, so we are one of the oldest national bodies dealing explicitly with research integrity. We are an association, an independent association. We are being financed only by member fees. All public research institutions and universities are members, but the membership is of course open to all non-public research performing organizations. We are also working together with the national funder, FWF. They're a member, but also the president of the FWF is the president of our board. As I said, the membership is not mandatory. The membership means also commitment to our recommendations on good scientific practice. What does it mean? That all institutions should observe our recommendation on good scientific practice and on fostering research integrity. I will very briefly discuss the main guidelines and our main recommendations in a moment. What I also wanted to highlight, we are not a part of the ministry. We do not report to the ministry in any ways. We only report to our members, and all our reporting, as well as the cases, of course anonymized, are published in both German and English. All these materials are available completely public on our website, usually yearly. What we are doing, first, the office itself, we serve as a kind of a first point of contact. It means that all researchers, scientists, but also PhD students can approach us. One important note here, I just spoke about the members, but of course we are open. We are receiving cases. We can receive cases from all researchers or scientists in Austria, so everyone can approach us. That's not just open, that's not limited, this kind of communication to people employed or involved in a member institution. Another important aspect that I would like to highlight here is that we are dealing with cases in Austria or related to Austria. So this is the geographical scope works. Of course, it's not just limited to the institution based in Austria. We are also handling cases of Austrian citizens involved in institutions abroad, or in researchers or scientists involved or affiliated to an Austrian institution. However, we also can consider cases where there is a strong connection to Austria. So this we are trying to be as open as possible when it comes to the geographical scope of the cases. We also do communicate with all parties involved. So in practice, this means that quite often we have some cases of miscommunication. That's why we're trying to advise people to find for them a way how to communicate within the faculty, within the institution, within the university. We're trying to re-establish or establish channels for them to communicate. So this is what we see as advising and partly as a mediation. Of course, not in legal, in the legal meaning of the mediation. And the last point, that we do support and advise the Commission. We have an external international commission for handling the cases. So this is a body of the agency, but this is an independent body where invited scholars that represent all disciplines are handling the cases. So we, as the agency, we are not handling the cases. We are preparing the documents, we are advising, we are checking, then we are communicating to the Commission. Why is this so important? So first of all, Austria is not a very big country. The research and academic landscape is even smaller. So what we have rather strong connections, networks, and that's why we really wanted to have people with no conflict of interests, meaning that we tend to have international recognized seasoned scholars who are experts in their field, but they're not strictly connected to any institution in Austria, or they do not have any current position in the institution in Austria. Of course, that's challenging, because still we want to attract people who can speak and who can actually investigate cases in German too. So for us, this the language scope is also limiting. And the second important and challenging factor for us, that we really want to have experts from each field. I mean, not each, but as you see, we have grouped them in some bigger disciplinary groups. So we have humanities, social sciences, law, life sciences, natural and technical sciences, economic sciences, and medical sciences, because we've seen that, of course, the practice in each of the fields is different. So there are a lot of disciplinary sensitive differences when it comes to topics related to research ethics and integrity. We have only one member of the Commission who is actually from an Austrian institution. This person is a legal scholar, and this person then is responsible for aligning the recommendation of the Commission with the legal and administrative framework of Austria. As I said, we have also training and prevention activities. This is actually where we are really trying to develop programs. We have different programs. So we have a free online-based program for basic teaching in research and integrity, because in Austria this kind of trainings are now becoming more and more mandatory, especially for pre-docs, for incoming postdocs. We are also we are working towards that also the senior researchers should have this kind of trainings at least once in their career, or maybe at least when they're starting, let's say, a new project as a PI or as a coordinator. We have also developed a train the trainer program, because we are a rather small institution. That's why we hope that with this train the trainer program, we will actually get people at each member institution involved in providing trainings at their own institutions. Of course, the national and international networking, as Rok has mentioned, we have also, we are partners in a number of EU-funded projects. Of course, in the field of research ethics and integrity, we are very active in the Arion group, which is so far the biggest European group, European network of research integrity offices. And we tend to cooperate and to create synergies and networks with partners not only in Europe but also worldwide, because we know that especially with the practice of open science, these more global perspectives are really necessary for a responsible uptake of research activities. Very briefly here, I just mentioned our recommendations. They are, of course, aligned with what is nowadays the main document in the field. This is the All European Academies European Code of Conduct. It was revised this year. And what was still important for us, why our recommendations and guidelines are, we're kind of setting the framework, maybe not only at the national level, simply because we have created them and designed them before the ALEA code. So the ALEA was first published in 2017. Our recommendations were still a couple of years younger. Of course, now we also want to integrate best practices at the European level, but also from all the other partners that we work with. So our recommendations can be then broadened to aspects as not only the open science, but emerging technologies as well, as I think that we are all experiencing quite some challenges here. Very briefly, main points, main statements from our recommendations. So how we actually define research misconduct. So research misconduct, according to our guidelines, is a willful, conscious, and grossly negligent violation of the standards of the good scientific practice. Very often, these are actually this kind of research misconduct, so fabrication of data, falsification of data, and plagiarism. But also, what I want to highlight, we have some additional aspects that maybe are not so often being discussed. So, unjustified refusal to provide access to primary and original data. I think that especially in the field of social sciences, that's very important. And what we do recommend that this primary original data should be stored for at least 10 years. And if this kind of refusal, if some researcher or scientists should be actually held responsible to the extent of this 10 years if he or she is not safeguarding, is not protecting his or her data for this period of time. Also obstructing the research activities of other scientists and researchers. Here we quite often have cases of this kind of restriction that comes together with some power relations. So we see that senior researchers might obstruct the postdocs by not providing, by not supporting their work or the international networking, or by not helping them in receiving third-party grants. This is also related to sabotaging research activities. Here we also have a very broad spectrum of actions, maybe not to go more into details, because we all know that the researchers and scientists are very creative people. And what we've experienced quite often lately is this point on providing inaccurate information in a grant proposal. What does it mean? For example, we had several cases when applicants were actually faking the numbers of the projects they were coordinating or leading, or they were faking the numbers of publications. So, of course, that this is creating a disadvantage to the other applicants. And here, as I mentioned before, we cooperate very closely with the national funders, so we really find this very, very close cooperation important, but also the funder, the national funder, is then highly appreciating our work and contribution, because for them it's also limiting their work in a sense. They just can prove, they can have a tool how to monitor, how to evaluate, and how to react fast to any possible questionable research practices or research misconduct. And of course, last but not least, creating disadvantages to the career advancements of the whistleblowers. This is now a big topic also on the EU level, so it's not only related to academia or to the research field. This is, I think, that creating a culture where whistleblowing is not perceived as some sort of a bad action or a treason. That's really important in supporting a responsible conduct of research. So how to provide channels where people are not scared to speak up, So we are trying to advise. We are also looking into cooperation with other institutions in Austria. We are trying to build here an advising program for the universities and the research performing organizations on how to create this kind of a structure and how to foster speak up culture in the academia as well. That's just a couple of last points, because I think that at least from our experience, researchers and scientists are not always aware that if, for example, they are involved in a research misconduct case, they can be also, they are a part. It doesn't need to be a very active part, but even if someone knows, if someone is supporting it, if someone is not speaking up, this can be considered already being a part of a research misconduct. Of course, the same with the co-authorship of publications. And here we are trying to raise awareness, especially when it comes to the juniors, because very often they're doing most of the work, but they do not have the strength, or they do not have the power at the end to foresee any kind of questionable research practices that might arise in the publication process. And last but not least, this is also a point that we are trying to strengthen in the last years, neglection of supervisory obligation can be also a research misconduct. So supervisors and mentors are there to supervise and to mentor. They have to be responsible. They have to provide also basic information on how research ethics and research integrity works. So, of course, that's an additional and a big responsibility. However, we are trying by our training programs to support our members in developing also this kind of a culture when the supervisor and the mentor is not only there to provide knowledge and to support students or pre-docs work, but also to guide them through what is actually the responsible uptake of research and scientific work. What is out of the scope of our rules and our work is statements that are not within the scientific discourse. So also we do have this distinction between academic integrity and research integrity. So for us, academic integrity goes to the level of master thesis. We are dealing with the dissertation and above. And errors made in good faith. I think that that's very important, that the researchers also know that it's a dangerous endeavor, and they can make mistakes, and mistakes are okay. Mistakes and no results are okay. That's fine. This is something that we actually support in a way that also no results should be communicated. This can prevent people then of doing the same, taking the same path. And of course, what is below the red line, that's mobbing and sexual harassment. These are topics that are covered by legal regulations in Austria. So here we only advise people to seek legal advice, legal help. How do actually foster research integrity on institutional level? Of course, we all do know that the framework is very important. So the policy framework is the first step. To have guidelines, to have recommendations, it's also one of the first steps that have to be taken. But then how to make them operational, how to implement them, how to monitor and how to evaluate. That's why this was also a work of the SOPs for RI, the project that I have mentioned, Standard Operating Procedures for Research Integrity, where we actually promised to create a link between the ALEA code, so the European code for research integrity, and to make it operational. So to make documents, to create templates and tools to translate these beautiful guidelines and recommendations into real policies that can be adjusted to the institutional level. our main goal was really to support not only the researchers, but the institutions itself. Because we all know that people who, let's call them research managers or administrators, they usually have a very broad range of responsibilities. And also it has to be a broader effort at institutional level, engaging different stakeholders to actually create this kind of a plan and to foster this kind of a research culture. This is why we have designed the Research Integrity Promotion Plan that we will be working today. And the first start for us was actually to conceptualize the main topics. So what actually research integrity means, what are the main topics that should be addressed in this kind of a plan, because what we've discovered at the very beginning of our work that this was not really defined. So a number of efforts were being taken, a number of documents were available, but this kind of taxonomy was still missing. Just maybe to go not first to the templates itself, but maybe with some advertisement. We were extremely happy and extremely proud that we still during our project we were actually contributing directly to the new Horizon Europe program. What does it mean? It means that, for example, for all beneficiaries, all institutions and organizations that will be funded or want to be funded via Horizon Europe program, they have to adhere to the ALEA code. This you can see here with us, the first hyperlink. And secondly, you have highlighted this appropriate procedures, policies and structures. If we could click on this link, that's actually the RIP. So this is guiding us to the Research Integrity Promotion Plan. So it is not mandatory, but it is referenced and it is recommended. And we are also listed and was as a part of the Horizon Europe program guide. What does it mean? That's the guide for all beneficiaries that do want to apply for funds. And there, our work, meaning the Research Integrity Promotion Plan, is also listed as a good practice. This is what we will be working with in the next hours. So I would like now to open the room for some preliminary first impressions and questions. Or clarification questions. I can also clarify some things. I know that it was a little bit sketchy. I tried to combine a lot of topics. No, please.
Everybody's silent. I would like to ask you, how many cases do you have in Austria in a year? Is that a lot? How many people are convicted? I mean, what are the consequences? Get an impression.
Yeah, absolutely. I am allowed to give a number, so that's absolutely fine. It depends on a year. I have to say that we have very busy years and very silent years. Sometimes we are having more than 200. Sometimes we're having 20. So what we see, because 3 years ago, actually, right before the pandemics, we have integrated into our website a platform for whistleblowers. So there you can anonymously report a case. And with this, I have to say that our numbers have doubled. Definitely, but it might be also connected to the pandemics. It was, of course, we didn't know that the pandemics would come, but for us this was, it has supported our work because we were not able to work from the office, we were not able to give advising, so people were not able just to come and to report a case, nor to send it per post or this just has allowed us for some more online-based work. and especially anonymous cases, they are usually really big cases. So this is what we have experienced, that what I also said before, it's this speak-up culture is still kind of new to the research work in academia, because people simply, they're all kind of networks, we all depend on someone, and very often the person who's, let's say, the research integrity officer assigned, this might be also the head of your department, or someone close to the dean. So of course that then it's really difficult, especially it's difficult for younger researchers and for the incoming pre-docs and postdocs. This is what we are. These are our experiences. However, of course, there are many cases involving seniors only and exclusively. However, with the seniors, again, this is just from our experience, at least they know the research landscape a bit better. It means that they usually have some networks, and they can also solve some issues via these networks. We have also, unfortunately, quite some highly politicized cases, which these are very, very difficult, very damaging. And these are cases that are first reported in the media and then to us, which is also giving us a very big disadvantage. And they are not always reported because of the research or scientific damage made. They're very often just a tool in this, let's say, political games, but we still need to handle it the same way, of course, as the other cases. So this is one new aspect of our work as we are really growing. This is something that I haven't said in the beginning. So especially in this last years, we have grown a lot. The members, not the office, which is a problem too. So now we have over 70, almost 80 members with 3 employees at the office, just to give you the ratio. And it really depends, and what is also important, that not very often we are also just ending up with advising. So quite often we're just having miscommunication cases, or cases that are not really cases of research misconduct, but for example some questionable research practices when we are still trying to do the advising. We have, of course, cases that are not in the scope of our actions. But also one thing that we have discovered, very often, let's say that we have some mobbing or harassment, sexual harassment case, research integrity is included. And then we also need to find ways how to interact, and that's also something very new that we need to discover. Not to mention some other cases with police included, but this maybe I can say during the break, not to scare everyone. But what we also experienced, that this shift, if we're talking that if we are putting more responsibility on institutions and on organizations, this means that we also need to cooperate broadly. A lot of topics related to research integrity are also connected to HR, for example, because we are talking about research assessment, hiring, we're talking about career path, we're talking about mentoring and supervision, incoming students and researchers. So this is all getting more and more connected, not to mention that we also need to cooperate with research ethics committees, because here the line is also very tiny. What is research integrity? What is research ethics? And in some cases, as I said, that's not really, we cannot have such a clear cut. In some cases, yes, and then we are very, very glad to send something directly to the ethical committee. But more and more, there's so many aspects involved, and especially with the international collaboration. And here there's the problem that in some countries we have counterparts, we know to whom to speak, we know to whom to to talk to or to address, but with many countries we just don't have this kind of connections because there are no research integrity officers, no agencies, no bodies involved. And then this communication is also making it more challenging and more difficult. And on the top of that, we need to still realize that research integrity, we're talking only about soft law in Europe. In the US, it's different, yes, but we don't have so many cases with the US because they just want to, usually if something is happening, they prefer to handle them in the US because they have kind of strict regulations. Of course, we can discuss about if this should be legally regulated or should it stay as a soft law and some sort of code of conduct. There are different opinions and perspectives, and I think that this discussion is very valid and important. However, this is how we need to operate. That's why what we're seeing, that the practical aspect is so important, because we don't have this all legal instruments. We cannot send someone to the court. Yes, we don't have these possibilities. We need to deal in-house. And what does it mean? It means that we need the structures, the procedures, and people in place. But we all know that we don't have it because it's just so resource heavy. It's kind of new for everyone. It's resource heavy, and it's a learning by doing. And that's why I do believe that this kind of meetings, and especially the discussions and all kind of feedback that we receive, and we just need to learn from one another than just to try to find our best ways. I mean, that's truly a co-creation. So of course, I'm really excited to hear about your experiences and to answer questions. And yes, is there something?
Thank you.
With the cases, I suppose you finish with a kind of a report. Is then the report published somehow or sent to those involved only, or what do you do with that?
Yes, so all the cases are being handled by the Commission. Also, we support the International Commission that it's handling the cases. We are supporting them in the sense that we provide the documents. So we are doing the first checking. If there's a case, then we are sending it to the president of the Commission. He or she is deciding who from the Commission members will start the proceeding, but we usually have two members working on a case. One member is the leading person, the other one is the supporting person. And yes, they need, of course, there is a recommendation. This recommendation is being sent to all parties involved. The recommendation can be public, but it's usually not, depends. This is also the decision that we are taking together with the Commission, our Commission for the cases, and our board. But as I said, all the cases are being anonymized and published. So this was also, that's always, there are ongoing discussions because especially in very tiny fields, people know, even without any names. But then this is also what we've promised. We've promised prevention. And since there is a prevention, so it's also good to know that you might end up on the website, yes, even without your name. But here, again, there are some discussions, for example, again, with the partners from the US. They, for example, tend to, some institutions are just uploading the cases not anonymized, with names, family names, everything. That, which, I mean, I don't think that this will happen in Austria, because also we see it as very damaging to the career and to even to the personal life of people. And of course, mistakes can happen also at our end. So this, I don't think that we will go in this kind of very strict policies, but yes, the conclusions, the findings, the recommendations, the statement of the Commission is always being sent to all parties involved. So that's for sure, and then it depends on the case and it depends on the institutions, because then also we are always involving the institution, especially when it comes to a person who's accused. Not in the beginning, maybe, but for the final statements, we are informing the institution, because the institution is the one who is taking the final decision how to implement the recommendation. So at least this is not always the case when it comes to the person who is the claimant, so the one who is actually starting the procedure, because then we can also agree with this person that he or she will be anonymous till the very end of the proceedings. There are very rare cases, because for us, then we also need to, with the anonymous cases, that's very difficult because you still need to verify it. So the case can be just handed or sent as an anonymous, but then second, third contact, then we need to know the person. So that's, at least to our office, the person is well known. But yes, we are of course always developing internal procedures, internal ways. We are trying to adjust to the situation, and now it's just the number of cases is growing and it's overwhelming. So I think that in a way we have suffered a lot from some good press that we had. So I think that people now more and more know more about us, that we do exist, and that there's a service open to everyone and for free. So I think that a lot of people are just, we are receiving quite some requests that should be, for example, sent to the HR of a university. So we have this kind of let's say, contacts too. So, but this again is showing that there are no structures at the universities. So people do not know to whom to talk to. What is happening? Is there someone? And very often we know that there is a research integrity office at the university, but people, they don't know because the university is so big, or maybe the university has premises in several locations, so they are not aware who is there. So what we are now doing, we are doing a national mapping. So we want all our members to provide information on who is responsible for what, where, which department, which faculty, what is missing, who will be appointed, and this will be then created as an interactive map on our website, but also as a document with. But we are trying really to get people and numbers and emails. So we don't want just description of which faculty will create what, but we really want people to know to whom to go. And this we really want to be open, available for everyone. So the researchers who are trying to, for example, approach us, they should be first informed that first contact point for them should be always someone at the institution. And what we are also encouraging the institutions to have a couple of levels. So to have someone at the unit level, at the faculty level, and then, of course, someone at the highest level, maybe at directorate. Because if this is too uncomfortable for someone to approach, let's say, even someone at the faculty, this person could go then directly higher or just go somewhere else. So this is also for us, we want to encourage them to build a structure, because also more people involved, this is less work. It cannot be just one person at the university. This we all know that it's not feasible. Because most probably this will be a researcher or a research manager who is anyway doing some regular job and is overworked most probably already, so this will come on the top. And from our experience, this is really a lot of work, also a lot of social skills are needed here, because you will talk to people that are really in a need. So you need to communicate, you need to be empathic, you need to understand, but at the same time you also need the empathy and the understanding for the person who is being accused, because very often maybe that's a mistake, yes, maybe that's a false accusation. So it's a very complex work, resource heavy, time consuming, and also emotionally difficult. But it's also, I think, very fulfilling, because then you can see that you're building something that can actually can have an impact. You see this impact very often, not always, but very often. So and then once that's started, we've experienced it, that it goes really fast. So once people know that there is some sort of a structure person responsible, then it can really. Then it's just faster, because then it's clear for everyone that there are some rules. If there are no rules, of course, that people misbehave, because everything is blurry. Everything can be bended and changed.
Just one question. As to the scope of your activity, you focus on the researchers, not on the students, so to speak, because you mentioned you start with doctoral students.
Yes,
and
yes. So this is how we see it. At least that's the division in Austria. So the academic integrity, that's the integrity that we see up to the master's students. Although we are now considering also taking some of the master theses that are really research-like or research-related, or just, let's say that they're too difficult to be handled only as an academic integrity case. In this academic integrity cases, mostly it's about plagiarism. So to be completely honest, at the university levels, this is how they're doing it, just using a software. And this is the academic integrity usually is limited really very, very much. So still with the authorship cases, they're coming to us, and we are not rejecting them, because most probably they have no one to talk to. So also master students. Bachelors, I mean, they're not publishing so much, but masters, yes. So that's the cases that we are still handling. Let me just. Yes, usually if there's some masters involved, that's usually limited to the authorship conflicts.
The consequences for scientists who did some gross misconduct or things like that are just in the domain of the institution, or you do some kind of recommendation, things like that.
Thank you. I'm smiling because that's a difficult question. Yes, as I said, we don't have a legal mandate. So our recommendations are recommendations of the Commission, and we are. Yes, the recommendations they are issued with after the end of each case. So we have them. We are informing the institutions, the organizations, and all parties involved, as I said. But the mandate, how to implement it, stays with the institution mostly, because the researchers or the scientists are usually affiliated. With the research funder, it's much easier, because they are just stopping the money or even banning people from applying. So this is, I've checked, the ban is 3 years for gross research misconduct, that the person, of course, cannot receive the funds, has to also not always, but sometimes also give back the funds that he or she has already received, and then this person is banned for applying at the FWF, for example. And the articles are retracted and so on. So I have to say, it's with the funders, it's very straightforward. So I think that what we've also seen, and what is the culture in Austria, that the funders have very high social responsibility, because they know that they are providing public money, they're spending the public money, and they're directly then providing I mean, they have a hearing at the parliament on how they are dealing with the money. And every kind of audits, everything is published, everything is completely transparent. So all the budgeting, all the funds spent on projects and programs, that has to be published yearly on the website. And I think that also because of that, they really seen that they cannot afford this kind of cases. So with the universities, it depends really on the research culture at the institution. I mean,
the institution may try to cover up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But what we've seen very often, when it comes, let's say, when it comes to third-party funding, they are willing to apply the recommendations because, again, some money, external money is being involved. With the publication, the same, because they really do fear that, I mean, articles will be retracted, and that's easy to be tracked and followed and proved. The worst cases are, unfortunately, the most difficult cases where we have sabotage, obstructing research careers, especially when it comes to juniors or when it comes to disadvantaged people in any ways. A lot of troubles we are having with the incoming postdocs, especially from, let's say, low and middle income countries. So the institutions tend to be more, careful with the counterparts coming from the West than from the other countries, unfortunately. But this is all changing. Yes, I have to say that this really depends on the institutional culture and even on the faculties and the units. So of course we know that there are groups who misbehave, and we need to talk with them quite often. But one good thing is that I think that once or twice you have experienced it, you not necessarily want to have it the third time. So then it's not always helping, but still I have to say that at least from my experience, having this kind of even like an institution or a body, and just knowing that someone is there and exists, and this might have some consequences, not even very implementable or tangible consequences, but even like that the community will know, or at least some people will know, that's good enough, that's working. I think that that's also one of the advantages of a small country. Because then if there is a shame, everyone knows. Yes.
I have one question. You said that the conclusions and findings are sent to all parties involved. So I suppose these are the institution, head of department, and so on, the accused party, and the accuser, if there is any or more of them. But since you said the biggest number of cases are issues of plagiarism in journals, are there also the journals necessary party involved, or it's a part of recommendations?
Yes, they are involved. All co-authors are involved. All people listed as co-authors, all people that we can track, or we can actually claim that they might have performed some work. The journals are informed with the conclusion, but usually we talk to them also informally a lot. So that's this is one of the good connection that we have also with the big publishing houses. They're very, very careful. So they're really careful.
So basically you take care of the retraction procedure?
No, we're just informing, we're sending the recommendation. Informally, we might still contact them, but that's informally. Yes, this also depends on the case, because there are levels of confidentiality, and we always try to adjust it to the people involved. And the problem is that there are also nasty cases where actually the person who's accusing at the end is the person who has done something wrong. So it's really the level of complexity sometimes is overwhelming. And but with the journals, absolutely, and we're sending this kind of a statement to all parties involved, even meaning, for example, in a research project partners. So that's not just if it's confirmed, of course. I mean, this is still the decision of the Commission. We are here very flexible. We are trying to be less flexible because we also have now more experience, so we will also want to set some sort of a really strict procedures, especially in the cases that we know how to deal and that we are getting quite often, because for us that's just also faster. Yes, you have a procedure, you know how to do, so you don't need to create the rules on the go. So for the co-authorship conflicts, we are very, very often. The plagiarism cases are very often. With the funding is more tricky because it depends. Then we are just providing the information to the funder or the funding institutions, and then they can do. They can also take their own measures. But of course, the most difficult part is then with the cases that are already reported in the media. Because we all stand for confidentiality. This is one of our founding principles. However, with all these years of work, we have found out that it also has to be balanced. So the best interest of the people involved and the institutions involved and the research environment as a whole is then the most important aspect for us. We would not, of course, we can't do anything against GDPR or the legal regulations in Austria, yes, and we're dealing very often with sensitive data. However, there are also some elements that we want to discuss with members more openly, especially like, for example, we have some groups that we know that they are mistreating the early career researchers or the pre-docs, and it's happening over years. And it was more about power structure, power relations within the institution. So of course that's something that has to be discussed. And of course not in the public, not in the media, but then still with the institution, with the board of the institution, with our board. Then we are trying to, we see this more as a prevention, even if that's a case at the end or just a repeating case. But it's complex. However, the main cases, we can just say that it's plagiarism, that's kind of straightforward how to do. Then the authorship conflicts, this can be also straightforward if you have a good connection to the publisher and if the publisher actually has procedures in place. Same with the funders. And then we need to, see it really as a research landscape. So one institution with good procedures in place won't change a lot. It has to be really an effort starting from the policy level, then all key stakeholders, so the universities, research institutions, at least the biggest publishing houses, and of course the national funders. If this is all aligned, that's making the work just effective and much faster. Ideally, of course. Yeah, we see the.
Have you addressed these issues from the perspective of artificial intelligence and all the tools appearing there?
We are trying to know. That's a very good question. We are trying to now. We have a working group on artificial intelligence and research ethics and integrity, and we are also involved in a project. It's an EU-funded project. It's called IREX, and then we are trying to actually provide training for research ethics experts to include AI, but it's we just started. But the way that we are trying to work on the AI, we are also working as a stakeholder to the European Commission, and now they are working on the AI Act to be published in this year. But of course, they are. It's really difficult. What we can address right now a little bit would be only the plagiarism in the AI. So here we are talking about, we are trying to influence that in the act it will be stated that for research scientific work the AI should be watermarked. Let's see how this will go. Of course, that's a limited solution. What I personally found really nice, there is the National Technical University of Norway, how they are dealing. They have an in-house AI to be used by all students and researchers and lecturers and stuff. This is allowed, and all kind of external AIs are not allowed. So at least this is how they try to track, or they try to work with. Of course, that's a limited solution, we all know it, but I guess that we will try somehow to deal with it, because most probably it is here to stay, and it's still providing a lot of opportunities. So we're trying also to see it from a positive perspective. And it's just, we need some basic rules to know how to operate. So again, but a very good question, a very good topic. I think that I've seen one question there.
Yes, from me. I wanted to ask, what happens if in a project consortium you accuse a project partner institution, and you've said that also the consortium, the whole, is then held accountable or being under investigation? Does that mean that your institution is also being held accountable? That's the first part. And the second part is, what if you accuse your own institution? You realize that there are some misconduct practices happening. What happens to you?
Thanks. They're very good questions, but they will require a bit of a longer answer. So, if you ask, if I understood correctly, let's take the EU-funded projects, right? Okay. Well, this is actually a big shortage that we've seen, and we already had one misconduct case in one of the projects, funnily on research ethics and integrity. So it happens. And the problem is, and this we have highlighted and communicated to the Commission, this is not being addressed, not even in the grant agreement, like the template. So the grant agreement is very unprecise, saying that that's a responsibility of the organization. So that's the way it's always being then pushed on the organizations. But then it's also not clear. For the EU projects, there are a lot of people being hired, affiliated to an institution, but let's say working for another institution. This was our case. A researcher for this particular project was affiliated to another institution, and this person worked there, but actually for her permanent contract was with the institution of the coordinator, and the research misconduct happened at the coordinating institution. Sorry for laughing, but this was who is one of the biggest group on research ethics. I won't say anymore. The problem was that then the Commission did not guide us at all how to deal with this, and of course then the institution leading this particular work package was shifting the responsibility to the coordinator. Then the coordinator was shielding with reading explicitly and literally the grant agreement when it says that that's not an explicit obligation of the project coordinator to deal with this kind of cases. And also the Commission, they don't have any kind of external body to whom you could actually report this. So they don't have like an ombudsperson for research ethics and integrity questions related strictly to this huge consortia. And the problem here is that we are talking about international consortia, so at least 10 partners, yes, or 5 partners or 8 partners are involved. And I mean, what we are doing now for our projects at the very beginning, we are just adding one point to this model grant agreement that we have assigned person, usually from the coordinating institution, who will deal with the research ethics and integrity questions. But this we are just doing. But as I said, we were just recommending it also to the European Commission that they should maybe think about a mechanism, or at least how to introduce it. But that's a very good question, and this kind of problems are happening quite often. especially that the projects are very short, they're shorter and shorter. So now we have, let's say, 15 partners, 3 years project, many new people hired, many of them working remotely. No one knows what are the procedures at which institutions. So yes, this is happening even in the research ethics and integrity field. And the second one was, I forgot, you need to please remind me, what was the second? About the internal. Also a very good one. So I am happy to inform that now we have our internal rule for internal breaches of research misconduct, although it's the 3 of us. So it's kind of easy to be seen and reported. But we also have a code of conduct for the administrative office, for the commission, for the board, they're all different. For the external evaluators that we are using for the cases. And of course this code of conduct, then it's kind of detailed also when it comes to how to the levels of confidentiality, contacts with media, usage of private laptops. We had all kind of cases, and how to handle sensitive data. What we would love to have, but we don't have the resources for that, is some sort of a training for the commission members, because this will be nice to have this kind of just to meet and to have even an online 2-3 hours training in the beginning of because we have a rotation, it's a 4 years for the commission members, and some people were dropping earlier, unfortunately. So I think that this is one of our goals, but let's see if this will happen. We are here, of course, heavily influenced by, for example, the trainings that the Commission is providing for the evaluators and especially for the ethics experts and evaluators. But internal rules, that's something going now maybe slowly to the SOPs for RI. So we have developed templates for research integrity promotion plan for both research performing organizations and for research funders. And what we've seen with research funders, we had wonderful piloting institutions, very, very involved. And then this I will maybe discuss later, that some of them are already trying to implement, even the funders. But it was also for us kind of a novelty to see that even the biggest research funders in Europe, they didn't have internal rules for misconduct, for research misconduct breaches. And this was something for us that was really alarming. So this was one of the topics that we worked really a lot with the funders, because that's also, this is how they've seen themselves, that they're somehow above these topics, yes, that they're the watchdog who is just, who has this power to monitor and to evaluate and to assess the research performing organizations, but they were not actually taking the ownership of their own potential questionable research practices. Of course, they're not doing research per se, but they evaluate here we worked mostly with the conflict of interest. And this is something that we've discussed a lot, because they are dealing with very different, potentially very diverse conflicts of interest. If we will even think only about this very big number of external evaluators, in-house evaluators, all kind of panels, heads of unit, heads of departments, heads of programs and projects. Those are all people who are supposed to be close to research and science. So this, I think, that also was one of the biggest challenge for our work, but also I think that we contributed here a lot when it comes to even making them think about how to design this kind of internal procedures. What was very interesting, we worked, I can't say a name, but we worked, one of the pilot testers, only one was a commercial research funder, and they had all kind of procedures, especially for conflict of interest. This was really, really amazing, but because they were just connected to a very big pharmaceutical company. So for them, this was this was really a need and an urge, because otherwise they could have get just into serious troubles.